Freestyle Travel. Hey everybody, this is the Freestyle Travel Show. I'm your host, Kenny Flannery, and in this episode we'll be talking to Liz Stewart. Those of you who've listened to the podcast for a while know that I met Liz Stewart when I was in Mississippi. She was in Alabama. She has been on the podcast twice. The first time was when she was throwing a March for Marijuana that she did not throw at the time. It seemed like she was going to throw it, and then she disappeared off the map for a little while. That got kind of crazy, and I caught up with her down the road in Albuquerque and recorded a second episode where she went over all the drama and things that happened with the Pop March and in her life and how things got pretty chaotic. That was the last episode you might have heard, and a lot's happened since then. She's gotten to some darker spots. She's got some pretty wild stories about how she met her current boyfriend, and yeah, just how things got even stranger, and the circumstances in which she met her boyfriend are really cool, actually. So it was great actually hearing that story. I saw her earlier in the summertime, and there's a lot of stuff we didn't talk about because we were going to do it on the podcast. We just didn't get around to it. But yeah, now I'm back. So real quick, since the last episode, I wound up here in Kansas City again. So New Year's Eve, I was talking to Liz on the phone, and she's like, let me get you a ticket out to Kansas City. And I didn't have any definitive plans after New Year's. I was going to kind of start heading south, so I was like, yeah, that'd be great, because she's at this hostel, which we talk about a little bit now, and she's working here. She was just staying here, and then they offered to let her, stay for free in exchange for being the resident artist and, helping turn over rooms and clean and that sort of thing. So, really cool spot. I'm glad to be here too, checking it out. So yeah, I enjoyed the rest of Wyoming. I hitchhiked one more time, so if you listen to the last episode all about my hitchhiking statistics, add 2 rides to that, so a total of 200 rides that I hitched in 2020. So I've updated that statistics page to reflect those 2 extra rides. Just going around from Jackson to Teton Village to see my sister. So yeah, good times rounding out through Christmas and New Year's, and spent a few extra days, and yeah, Liz got me that ticket, so I spent like 18 hours in the Denver airport, had a layover there, kind of slept in one little wing of the airport that was quiet, and got here just a couple nights ago, so really enjoying it, and I'm not sure how long I'll be here altogether, but I did get my passport back in the mail. Sent that in to be renewed about a month ago, and I luckily got a pretty quick turnaround, so I'm, armed with a passport again. So, yeah, thinking about getting out of the country. But mentioned a couple ideas after the chat with Liz. So, yeah, let's just get into it. We got right into it right away. We turned the microphones on, and she just started talking, catching up. So, like I said, the backstory is, how we met, and 420 March that she organized and then ditched out on. So the first podcast was talking about that. The second one was talking about why she ditched on it, where she went to, some of her struggles along the way, substances and all that. And yeah, so now we'll get into what happened next. All right, here's Liz Stewart. All right, back.
All right. So last time we talked, I was in Albuquerque. We were at the hotel, and you left. So shortly after you leave, which, we talked last time about like addiction and things like that, but boy, it got a lot darker.
Yeah.
After that. Yeah. Wow. So I relapsed shortly after you left.
And I've been waiting to hear this too.
Yeah. I'm glad we held off on this. This is a cool leg of the journey. So I relapsed shortly after you leave, and I end up meeting this guy who was this Jewish musician, and I was super into him because he was talented. He could, he had won like recording contracts before, and he was he happened to be a heroin addict. So I was like, hey, this is perfect. Like, let's get together.
Yeah.
So we did. And we got together and we got sober. Well, I got sober again.
Oh.
So we used...
So even though he was a heroin addict, you decided together to...
So we're like, we're going to get sober. And so we did. Well, he got sober. I continued to use.
Okay.
And then finally he's like, you know, look, you gotta get sober. This isn't working. Da, da, da. I mean, and I was going to like group therapy and shit and talking just high as a kite, thinking no one really knew.
But they're all a bunch of addicts, so they know.
Oh, everyone knew.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Everybody knows. Everybody knows when you're not doing well. You know, like, so I relapsed, and it was brief, and it didn't get terrible. So I, actually, it did get bad. I forgot about that part. So he ends up like just kind of leaving, disappearing, because he was trying to stay sober. I wasn't staying sober. So I ended up using drugs, IVing drugs for the first time, like that summer.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So when I say it gets darker, it gets like...
yeah, and you're on your own by yourself doing
yeah,
this? Or
so I had a buddy.
It?
I had a buddy that I'd actually met in my little like rehab group when I'd gotten sober before, and he'd relapsed also. So I was kind of letting him crash at my apartment. You know, and everybody is just bringing me whatever I want because I have, you know, I had like a solid place in XYZ.
Gotcha.
So I'm just letting all these people in my house. And he and I, you know, we all were there getting high for a few days. And, you know, we're like, let's start a fucking small business where we do funny greeting cards that are like, oh, congrats on your abortion. You know what I mean? Or like...
this is the Happy
Worst Day. This is when we came up with
it.
Happy Worst Day because I made a breakup card for that Jewish kid. And so I call it, I just start getting miserable. I have some poetry I actually wrote during that time, and I talk about how like dark things have gotten. I cut my bangs so I could hide my eyes. It was a really dark poem, and it was, you know, I was like, I'm talking less to myself and even more less to other people, and soon I'll probably achieve total silence, which looking back was a really dark thing for me to write.
Yeah.
Well, I like turned my phone off for like 10 days. I stopped going to work. You know, things got bad for me. Well, like one night I just called him and I was like, I can't do this anymore. Like, help me out. So he came and got me from my apartment. Because he's like, you don't need to be in that apartment. I don't know what's in there. You know, you've got people in and out of there. It's not safe. It's not conducive to like you getting better.
Yeah.
So he came and got me from my apartment. I checked myself into a detox for like 5 some odd days.
Okay.
So I detoxed for like 5 days, and then I went into an outpatient like rehabilitation group with the same place I'd done it before. So I had like my same therapist and XYZ, and
the place that we had talked about.
Yeah, and so I cannot stress enough the value of a good therapist. And that's a big part of my story. This leg of my story is like taking charge of like my mental health and my overall health. And, you know, I'm big on like right now, like you can't pour from an empty cup, but when you pour from an overflowing cup, it's effortless.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like what I've been focused on lately. But I go back, I see my therapist, I'm in this group, and I actually finish the program. It's like a 4-month program, 3 days a week, 4 days a week, 3 hours.
4 months?
I did 4 months of that.
Wow.
And I finished.
Were you working at the same time? Or?
I got a job right at the end. So I was able to just kind of stay off work. So my boyfriend, my little Jewish boyfriend, he was sober, I was sober. So we were living in a townhouse in Albuquerque together that was his mother's.
Yeah.
So I got a job right when I graduated my outpatient deal. Graduated, I got to tell my life story at my graduation, which was amazing because I've never sat down and just told like A to B. The whole thing, from like childhood to like where I'm at now. And it was beautiful because I told them, when I told that story, and I'm in a group full of just like all these different people put together. And it's cool to be able to relate so broadly to people. And, but I told them at the end of that story, I was like, the best part about this story is I'm still writing it. Like every day I get to get up and write this story.
Of course.
You know what I mean? And I've been reading a lot of Brene Brown lately, and she says, when you own your story, you get to write the ending. And I love that.
Nice.
And, so I get to tell my life story. It's so freeing and so uplifting. I cried at the end, and I was like, yesterday, one thing I said in there that stuck out to me was, yesterday I took a selfie just because I thought I looked pretty,
Yeah.
And it was so good, and everything was so great. So I start this like corporate job. I got a corporate job.
And when was this? This is 2020?
Yeah, 2020. So I started the year off 2020 clean, sober, graduating, telling my life story, and it was just beautiful. And so tell my life story, graduate, get this corporate job, and Nick and I relapsed together. So we relapse, and
within a month or
so I get my job.
Or?
Yeah, it was cutting it close. Yeah, and so we relapse. I'm working this corporate job. I'm making great money. So fast forward, it's February, and one day, it was the day before my birthday. I looked at him and I was like, is there Narcan in the house? Just because I knew what he was doing, and something just told me to ask. And Narcan is the drug that they give you when you overdose on opiates.
How do they give it to you? Is it a needle?
It's in your
thing?
nose.
In your nose.
So it's a spray that goes in your nose, right? So
if you're overdosing, you get sprayed with that, and hopefully, if you haven't gone too far,
it reverses. It will reverse it.
Yeah.
So I looked at him that day. This was about 2 p.m. I said, is there Narcan in the house? He said, yeah, I think it's in the upstairs bathroom in the cabinet. And I walk up the stairs, open the cabinet, look at it, put my hands on the box, look in the box, and put it back in the cabinet and close the cabinet.
Yeah.
At 2:30 the next morning on my 30th birthday, I'm sitting downstairs eating pizza, and the house gets really still. And I was like, I need to check on him. And I go upstairs, and he's slumped over in a chair. And I call his name out. When I called his name out, he hit the floor, and he was blue. He'd overdosed.
Damn.
And I knew where the Narcan was.
Right. So you ran
I went and
right
got
for
it.
that.
I couldn't read the box because I was panicking. This was an older dose, so you had to actually assemble stuff to put it together and do it.
Oh, damn.
I couldn't do it.
That kind of moment?
His father happened to be visiting us and was in the house, and I woke him up and I threw the box at him and I said, call 911, put this together. He's overdosed. And I just dropped to my knees and started giving him CPR.
Damn.
And his nose was bleeding. I've got blood on my face. His dad goes into shock.
So he couldn't assemble that thing either?
He said, I don't know how to put it together. He's trying to pick him up off the floor and hug him, and he's crying, and I'll never forget the look on that man's face. And I just kept pumping him, and I'm screaming on the phone with 911. And I'm like, please just give me CPR counts. Because I didn't know how to do CPR correctly, which if you don't know, learn. That's a valuable skill to have, and you never know when you may have to use it. So they're trying to give me CPR counts. I'm pumping his chest. I worked on him for probably 10, 15 minutes with no response.
Wow. And he's blue?
He's a grayish blue. His lips are gray. He was gone.
Yeah.
So right when the paramedics and the police show up, he sits up. I had been able to assemble the Narcan and hit him twice with it. He sat up right when they got there, and I was just standing there with my hands on my head looking at him. And he looked at me, and I was like, oh my God. When we go to the hospital, they give him a toxicology, and he had fentanyl. He had done fentanyl, which is a very small dose of fentanyl can kill you. And he had injected fentanyl.
He injected it?
He injected it.
Had he done that before? Or is this his first
No, he wasn't trying to do fentanyl. He thought he had gotten heroin,
I gotcha.
and someone had given him fentanyl.
Trickery. Fuck.
And he was dead as a doornail. And I cracked his ribs, giving him CPR. And the doctors are having me in the hallway, and they're telling me, good job, good job. And I'm like, I don't know how this person is alive right now. So they run his reports, and in the hospital, they ended up having to IV Narcan into him. He had that much in his system.
Wow.
He was dead. I don't know how that man's alive, but I'm glad he is. I'm glad he made it through that. That's scary. So, but the bad part about it is in areas where the opioid epidemic had hit really hard, people are desensitized to that kind of stuff. You know, they'll Narcan a buddy, throw him in the car, and take off for the day. It's just that bad. And I did not realize that. And I was so shook by what had gone on.
Yeah, that shouldn't be a normal thing to see.
No, you should never have to see that. And his father should have never had to see that, you know? And the next day I called my family and I was like, I just want to tell you that I'm sorry for every time I put a chemical in my body, because that could have been them. You know what I mean? That could have been my parents picking me up off the floor. Yeah. And, but addiction is a bitch because it doesn't care. It doesn't care that you have a family. It doesn't care that, you know, you have kids. It doesn't care about any of that.
So you kept going after that?
I kept going.
Ah, damn.
And he ended up continuing to use as well, unbeknownst to me. So I'm at work the following Friday. I can't get a hold of him. I call his mom. She said, I'm at the hospital. He's overdosed again.
Damn.
Yeah.
A week later?
I said, he cannot no longer live with me. I said, it's either, you know, he's leaving or I'm leaving, and I'm paying all the bills, you know, because I'm working. So we end up getting him into like a sober living program. He has to go live somewhere else. I'm starting to have nightmares. I went through I was just traumatized from it. I'm having nightmares. I can't think straight. So I continued, you know, I continue to use because that's taken all this like bad stuff away from me.
And you're living with his family?
I'm living in a home that his mother owned.
Oh, okay.
So,
by yourself or with them?
So he's in sober living. I'm living there.
Yeah.
So COVID happens.
Oh, yeah, that.
COVID happens. And he says, I need to come back because of COVID. And he convinced his mother. So he comes back into the house.
Okay.
This is a couple weeks after this whole thing. You know, it didn't last long.
So CPR, a week later, overdose again, 2 weeks later,
back in the
house.
house.
Back.
Yeah,
Damn,
he's back in the
fast
house.
And furious.
So I had no time to I would hear loud noises in the house and go running up the stairs. I mean, it took me a while to get over that. But I had a lot of drugs, so it's kind of easy to get over, unfortunately. Well, COVID happens. We're all in quarantine. They shut down the state of New Mexico. I can't go to work. I start working from home, which for addicts, isolation is the worst thing we can do.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
imagine.
Like,
yeah.
I'm isolated and bored, and I just have a bunch of money. So,
yeah. What
do you think I was doing? You know what I mean? We used the whole time. It was crazy. Well, I ended up
another month at that point, or
this was in March. So in March I start I'm like making cool stickers and stuff because I got in this little like vinyl machine. I'm kind of selling those on the internet. Yeah. And then I end up on Reddit, and so there is a stimulants chat room on Reddit.
A stimulus chat room?
Stimulants. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So of course, like, I'm bored and awake. I get on there and I start mingling with these people, and it's fascinating because you have all these people who are high on stimulants in one chat room together. It's like 7,000 of them.
Oh, wow.
Oh, it's phenomenal.
Sounds chaotic.
Oh, God, it's a ride, and that's a big part of the story. So I'm in there, and I end up forming this little group of online friends. So we create this like secret little chat. Well, like, those are the people I started hanging out with. We would all get on Zoom calls and hang out and XYZ.
Okay.
So I form a group of like online cronies who are doing the same shit I'm doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And we're talking March or April.
May
at this point.
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
So we all hang out. Well, I get one day, one night I'm in there, and my favorite number in the world is 3. 3 is just like my number. If I see a 3, I'm like, that's me. You know how we all have those like numbers, you know what I mean? So I'm in there on June 3rd, and somebody sees me in there talking. And my profile picture, though, on Reddit, because it's all anonymous, and I love that about it, because you can be very candid there.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Worry about
I don't have to worry about anybody knowing who I am or whatever.
Yeah.
So I'm very candid with these people. You know what I mean? These have become my people. Like, I've gotten to know, I can tell them anything, you know?
Yeah.
Well, my profile picture on Reddit was a very large African-American woman with like a plastic beehive, pink beehive on her head and a headset on. So that was like my photo, but you know what I mean? But the people who knew me knew it wasn't me.
Right.
So I'm in this chat room on June 3rd, and I'm in there, I guess, out of 7,000 people, I was the loudest one there. So Rob happens to be in there. Rapacious Rob.
All right.
He's in there, right? So he sees me talking and clicks on my profile.
And this is someone at that point you do not
I do not know.
Okay.
Never met this person. So he says he sees me running my mouth and he clicks on my thing and my profile populates. Well, I had been making those stickers, right? And I had made a bunch for the state of New Mexico, and he saw that. So on June 3rd at 3:33 in the morning, believe it or not, got a paper trail and all this. We didn't realize this till months later, actually.
Yeah.
June 3rd at 3:33 in the morning, I get this message that says, "Are you in New Mexico?" And I'm like, who the hell is this?
Yeah, that's a weird message to
Right?
get from out of the blue.
It's this guy, and he's like, "I'm in New Mexico too." And I was like, but I recognized, I was like, this guy is looking for friends, because that's what I had been doing. We're all shut down. We're all in lockdown. I was like, he's looking for friends. And, you know, they say, they said, you know, buy the ticket, take the ride. And for some reason, we ended up sitting next to each other on this like thing called life. And out of all these 7,000, you know, high ass people, we happen to be 3 hours apart. And so I'm like, I'm going to add you to my little friend group chat. So I add him on
The
there.
private like Zoom.
Right.
Chilling group.
Yeah, so we talk candidly for a month, and we become like best friends, but we don't know what the other person looks like.
Right.
So he thinks I'm this
Are you
woman.
talking? So you're not Zoom calling with him?
No, we are not.
Are you phone calling, or is it all just?
It's
text,
all just text.
back and forth?
Yeah, it's all on Telegram.
Gotcha.
So we're all just texting back and forth in our little group, and then he and I would talk, and he became my best friend. But he thought I was the woman in that picture.
Right.
So he thought I was like his, you know, strong, fierce African-American woman. And which I guess when you know my personality, like it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So we become great friends, and I just think the world of him. You know, I'm like, this is one of my best friends. Well, one night we all get on a Zoom call and we see each other for the first time.
Yeah.
And he's like, that's her? He's like, I've been reverse catfished, you know? So we end up spending close to 48 hours a week on Zoom.
Oh, wow.
Hanging out. Yeah. We become best friends.
At that point, is that just like an open Zoom call? Like, are you talking the whole time, or you just like look over every once in a while? Be like, oh yeah.
Sometimes we would just hang out and draw and listen to music. You know, we were all using drugs on there together, which was fun.
It was.
We had some weird Zoom parties, which I'll spare you the details of those, but you can imagine.
Yeah.
So we become these best friends. Well, my ex-boyfriend, you know, the boyfriend who OD'd and we're living together.
Yeah.
Of course, if I'm spending 48 hours on Zoom, I'm not paying very much attention to this guy.
Right.
So,
Oh, you're still living with him?
Yeah, he's there.
Oh,
So he starts just losing it, right?
yeah.
Well,
He's not
Man.
partying in these Zoom chats?
I mean, he's trying
to,
to, but I'm just kind of ignoring him. Like, because, you know, I've got all these other friends that are way cooler than him. He's old news. And I was still very resentful at him for the whole overdose thing. You know, I was still mad about
Twice
that.
in a week. It's pretty loud.
Yeah, and like, come to find out, I was funding that habit, and like, I'm not with that. Like, you know, I have my vices, but I draw the line somewhere. And,
Right before overdose.
yeah, we're staying alive. So golly, man. So he just starts losing it, and like the more he like wants to spend time with me and try to like make things work, the more I just pull back.
Right.
So eventually it gets to the point where I'm like, I'm going to leave you, and like, this isn't going to work. And then he really loses it, right? So he just starts like behaving bizarrely to try to get my attention, and things got kind of out of hand. Well, I told Rob, I'm like, I'm getting out of here for a few days. So I leave, and my friend who had been at my apartment the summer before when I was doing really bad.
Oh, yeah.
I call him and I'm like, where are y'all? And I want to come over. So it's off to the races again for me.
Is that the dude I know?
Yep.
Okay.
So it's off to the races again for me. And I go back home and I bring syringes into the house.
Yeah.
I bring needles into the house. And he's
Is that
like,
new? I thought you'd been doing that.
well, I hadn't been doing that the whole time. So like I when I got sober, I was like, I'll never do that shit again. You know what I mean? And then I relapsed. So I'm not IV. Okay. Well, I go hit that old crowd and I'm like, let's
Back
rock
into
and
that.
roll,
Yeah.
you know? And like the cool thing about drugs is they let you live on a level that's like 12.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily that everything's great. You're just really high and everything seems great. So I was like, oh, this is the tits, you know?
Of course.
So,
so you bring that into the house, and how does he react? Is he stoked? Or
he calls the cops.
Oh.
This is where it starts getting crazy.
Okay.
So I bring it into the house. He knows I have drugs in the house, and he calls the police.
But he's been doing drugs too. It's different.
Right. He's high on drugs, and he calls the cops.
While he's high?
It's a total shit show.
Okay.
So he's getting high too, but he calls the cops on me because he's trying to get my attention. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I have Rob on Zoom. The cops show up, and they check my blood pressure. EMS comes out because he told them like she's been using drugs. Like EMS comes out. They check all my stuff out, and they're like, "Wow, your vitals are just off the charts." So they take me to the hospital, and the doctor's like, we're going to give you a psych evaluation. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. And I talk to them and they're like, all right, well, we're going to let you go. Okay. So I'm like, I'm on Zoom with Rob and I'm like, let me call him and tell him to come get me. So they give me a Valium.
Yeah.
And send me home. So I call homeboy up and I'm like, come get me. They let me go. So he comes and gets me from the hospital. We go right back to the house, which is insanity.
After he just called the cops on you?
Yeah. I'm like, come get me. I want to go home.
Wow.
So he comes and gets me, takes me home. Well, like a day or two later, I'm sitting on a Zoom call upstairs, and at this point, I told him like, "We're never getting back together. You're a cop caller." I'm like, you've called the cops on me. Like, you're trying to get me into trouble. Like, once you cross a certain line, there's no coming back.
Yeah.
So I've barricaded myself into a bedroom. I'm getting just trashed with my buddies on Zoom, and I'm sitting there listening to some Blink-182 one day. And I hear somebody downstairs, and I look at Rob on Zoom, and I'm like, wouldn't it be funny if that was the cops? He'd called the cops again.
Called the cops again?
So I walk out with my...
Just because you were listening to Blink-182?
Oh, that's not a crime. That's encouraged. No, he called the cops because I had barricaded myself into a room, wouldn't talk to him, and I'd brought more drugs into the house. So that whole thing. So the cops show up, and I was just straight up with him. I was like, here's my paperwork. We're breaking up. He's not taking it well. He keeps trying to get me into trouble. They said, well, he says you're using drugs. I said, I am. But you can't search my house without a warrant. I know my rights. You know what I mean? I was like, yeah, I am. That's true. I was like, but like, do I seem like because I hadn't engaged with him. I was like, I'm not going to talk to you, you know, and locked myself in a room. And then he calls the police. So he's like really trying to get me into trouble at this point.
Yeah.
Which I was like, I'm not about to pick up a drug charge in New Mexico.
So that's okay to tell them, like, at the door, like, yeah, I am. That's not a reason for them to come in and search? Or...
They were cool. Like, they were cool with me about it because I was being upfront with them. And then they started to realize, like, okay, he's kind of going through this, like, mental breakdown.
Yeah.
I was cool as a cucumber. I was like, look, I want to leave. I was like, I'm trying to find, you know, somewhere to go. I don't have any family here. I don't have any friends, you know. I don't have anywhere to go is the thing. And like I've been paying the bills there. So I had 30 days to get out of there.
Yeah.
And I said, I want to leave peacefully. Trust me, I want to leave. I was like, but I just kind of can't right now.
Right.
And they ended up making him like go somewhere. So he left. Yeah, they told him to leave. And
even though it's his place, kind of?
Like, well, I'm paying all the bills. It's his mom's place. Yeah. And so he thought he could just like kick me out. But like, I have rights.
Yeah. But yeah, I guess technically it's your place.
Exactly. So I'm on there, and then Rob, my buddy from Zoom, like my best friend from Reddit, is like, I have fallen in love with Rob at this point.
Yeah.
So me and Rob are like in love with each other. I wrote him this.
Is he like chilling on Zoom while you're talking to the cops?
Yeah, I kept him on there the whole time, and I told the cops, I said, I got a witness.
Wow.
Trust me, I will record everything I do. I'm not scared, and sometimes it's the best thing to do. So, Rob and I have fallen in love with each other at this point, and I had written him this poem. He had bright pink hair at the time, about how beautiful and colorful his hair was, and how beige my world had become, and how I wanted to just lose control and vomit pink all over everything in my life. And
I read that. That's one of the ones you sent me.
I did send you that one, huh?
Yeah.
It was a good one. I wrote that to Rob during my big relapse.
Okay, cool.
So Rob goes, I'll come get you. And I was like, I'll pack a bag. And I start packing my stuff.
Oh, that's right, because he lives 3 hours away.
Yep. So at this point, like, neither one of us have any money. The guy, the ex-boyfriend, had taken my cash that I did have.
Oh, damn.
So the day I'm packing up for Rob to come get me, which, by the way, was on the 4th of July. It was like my 1-year anniversary with Homeboy. I left. And he wouldn't give me my cash because I needed to give Rob gas money to, like, come get me because, like, neither one of us had a thing.
Yeah.
And because Rob had actually just gotten out of prison, he had done like 7 years. So I was like, yeah, this guy just got out of prison. I met him on the internet. Come get me. Yeah. Which turned out to be one of the better decisions I've made in my life. So he steals his grandmother's truck in the middle of the night and comes to get me. Well, I'm trying to get my cash back to get gas for us to go back to where he's from, which is in the middle of nowhere in New Mexico.
Right.
And so I needed like $60. And dude's like, I'm not giving you the cash. And I said, okay, that's fine. Let me make a phone call. So I sold a nude photo of myself.
Via a phone call? You're like,
I made a phone call. I was like, hey, I need to get out of here. What would you like? Send me nudes. Sure did.
All right.
So I sold some nude photos, got $60, and Rob came and got me in the middle of the night, and we put it on Zoom. So he Zoomed from his camera, I Zoomed from my camera, and all of our Reddit friends got to watch us meet for the first time in person.
What a trip.
And they had watched us fall in love.
Huh.
So it was cool. They were like, we're watching like a love story unfold, you know? So I opened the door. Rob arrives. I opened the door to go let him in, and my ex-boyfriend is in the driveway, and he's on mushrooms. And I'm like, I close the door, and I'm like, guys, my ex-boyfriend's here. What do I do? So Rob walks in, cool as a cucumber. We grab my little bags. We hop in the car, and we jet. And we didn't know, like, because you have different chemistry in person than you have with people online.
Of course, yeah.
And we didn't know, like, if we were going to really like each other in person. We didn't know how this was going to go over, you know, like.
At least you had the video calls. That's a much better than
helpful.
Just text. Yeah. But still, it is a different thing to be in each other's actual space.
Yeah. So he comes and gets me, and we head out of town. Well, we didn't know what we were going to do. You know what I mean? Yeah. He takes me to his grandmother's house, which he told her I was coming into town and getting a hotel, come to find out. So, like, we're just like, well, we'll figure it out. You know what I mean? Yeah. There was no, like, plan. Right. It was just
You're
like,
just down there now.
I love you. You love me. You're in a bad spot. I'm going to come get you. And I raised the money. So, comes, gets me. We dip out of town, and we go to the middle of nowhere in New Mexico.
And you're just at Grandma's house?
At his grandma's house.
Is she awake? Like, I thought you were going to a hotel.
We just kind of snuck in.
Oh, okay.
So, like, I'm just kind of sneaking around.
Is this like 2 in the morning or 2 in the afternoon? Or?
Oh, we got back at probably like, we probably got rolled in town about 8, 9 a.m.
Oh.
So I just kind of slide in the house, you know?
Grandma's up.
Yeah, but I don't think they see me at first. So, like, we're just kind of slide in the house. Well, then, like 2 or 3 days later,
2 or 3 days later.
I forget that I had applied for unemployment. Like 2 or 3 days later, my back pay from unemployment hits my account.
Oh, wow.
So I got back pay. It was like $2,000 into my bank account.
Which is unlimited money when you're broke, for sure.
Yeah, I'm just like, hey, I was like, Rob, you've never been anywhere, because he'd never left the state of New Mexico before. I was like, let's go somewhere. Let's do something, you know?
And are you talking to grandma at this point? Is it
Like she knows I'm there, you know what I mean? She realizes I'm there.
2 or 3 days.
But I get that money and I'm like, all right, let's get us, like, I ended up renting like this little Airbnb and we stayed
in the same town?
Yeah, we stayed in the same town.
Okay.
And then I got like a hotel for like a week or two, and then we go back to his grandma's house, and my buddy calls and he's like, I got a townhouse in Albuquerque, and because we wanted to be roommates.
Yeah.
My buddy that, my bad crowd I had been hitting it hard with.
Yeah.
We had decided we were going to be roommates. So he calls, he's like, I got a townhouse, rent's paid up 3 months. I got an extra room for you. Come out, we're going to do this.
Oh, sweet.
So Rob and I decide. And in the middle of all this, I ended up renting a room at his friend's house for like a month. So I ended up staying in this town for like 2 months.
Oh, damn.
Yeah. So I hit up his buddy. I rent a room out of his house for a month. I give him like $300, which when you're broke is a lot of money.
Yeah.
Give him $300, rent a room out there for a month. And the buddy ends up saying like, I got to get sober. I'm moving to Colorado, and leaves. So my buddy hits me up and is like, I got a townhouse, come on. So, and thank God that he moved, because I don't think if that guy would have moved, we would have ever moved. So we go to Albuquerque and we all move into the townhouse together.
Okay.
So yeah, we're all just doing bad in the, with our addictions.
Okay.
And we're all in
picking it up and
we're all in this townhouse together.
Right.
And so it was it got kind of to be a dark situation. But I knew I loved Rob. I knew that I wanted to stay alive. And I knew I wanted to see my son again, which I don't think I mentioned on the podcast before. Like 5 years ago, I had a baby. And I had been estranged from my son because I was just a mess. And this whole time, this whole journey, people have been hearing about, I've had this void that I missed my kid.
Yeah.
My kid was the only thing that kept me alive. I had this poem I wrote to him about how amazing he is, because he's the thing that made me brave. He's the thing that made me strong. He's the thing that made me smile when I just wanted to die.
Yeah.
And the hope that I would see my son again kept me alive. So one night back in August, it was August 4th, I told Rob, I said, I'm going to go see my son. I didn't know that I could, because I thought that my parental rights had been relinquished. Well, Rob, having been in the legal system before, he's able to look up my case.
Oh, really?
He can pull the case, and he looks at it. He said, you can see your son. And I said, I'm going to go see him. And I didn't know up until that moment that I could even do that. So.
And your son's where we are now.
My son's in Kansas City. So I'm in New Mexico. He's in Kansas City. So they got to get from A to B. So we all go to the townhouse. Well, my roommate decides to rent a car for a month. And I look around and I'm like, I want to see. Something happened in me. And I just did it. I told him, I said, let's go on a road trip and go see my son, because my roommate's really thick in an opiate addiction. Me and Rob are doing great, but we know we want to do better. And I know I've got a kid out in this world.
Yeah.
And I think that was a great example of providence, because I didn't know if I'd ever see my son again. And, my roommate gets this car rental and I'm like, let's go.
Yeah.
And it saved all of us. So we leave town. We don't have access to anything anymore. We packed up, we left. And we were only going to be out here for a few days. So we come out. I saw my son again on his 5th birthday.
Oh, perfect.
He walked in, and I've got it on video, and I hugged him. And we threw him a birthday party. So me, Rob, and my buddy all road tripped out here. We turned a 12-hour drive into a 19-hour drive.
Yeah.
And I get here and I hug my kid. That's all I needed.
Yeah. And that's August.
That was September 1st.
September 1st.
I came out, hugged my kid for the first time in 3-4 years.
Wow.
And that's a powerful, powerful thing. And I'm realizing that love is the most powerful force on this planet. really is. And I think that's why, like that movie Monsters Inc., they, it's like solar power when they laugh.
Oh, I never saw the movie.
So like
I can imagine.
they're harvesting power from screams from scaring kids. And then at the end, they go in and start making kids laugh. And it's like solar power in compared to like,
I gotcha. Yeah.
And it's like they produce so much more power when they're laughing.
Yeah.
And damn, that's true. That's so true. Like, love and happiness are, two of the most powerful driving forces on the planet. And I think that love it kept me alive,
Well, now it's kept you out here. So you were only going to come out for 2 or 3 days?
Yeah, so we get out here, hug my kid. My friends start cleaning up, and we all start getting our act together. And we're like, let's do our business ideas from Kansas City. Let's stay. There's nothing for us in New Mexico but trouble.
Yeah.
We don't want to go back. And the guys are like, we don't want to go back. And I was like, I don't want to go back either. And we stayed.
And I saw you at one point. We didn't tell this story because we just didn't get around. We wanted to save it for the podcast and never got to it. But that must have been
It was
September,
right before
October.
you came out. Yeah. So we decided to stay. We rented that little duplex over there. And so you came out. We all kicked it. And we're still struggling with our addictions. It's hard. That's a hard thing to kick. And so I had on Reddit found someone in the area that we picked up from, and I'm battling this thing and hard because, I've got my kid back in my life and I'm like, I got a lot to lose now.
Yeah.
Because once you come back into a child's life like that, you can't leave him again, Right. He's 5. Yeah. Like, he knows his mom's in town. He was so happy that I came back into town, and that's like building trust with my kid.
Yeah, now he's 5. It's memories from here on out.
And I'll never, ever have another shot at that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, this is my shot. So I see my kid. I'm starting to see my kid more. We're playing basketball on the weekend, skateboarding, painting with him. And you come out. We'd had a relapse while you were here, which you knew. I mean, it was pretty obvious. And then we got just miserable. You know what I mean? It's hard getting on and off drugs like that.
Yeah.
It's bad for you. It's bad for you mentally and emotionally and spiritually. Physically. That's just, we can handle that. Like my mind and my spirit were just taxed, And one day I looked at Rob. I was like, if we're really as good for each other as we say we are, we'll fix this. And we did. We got sober. We got sober again. And we get sober and
did you stay at that duplex or whatever for a while longer?
Oh, so we leave the duplex and we rented out the 3rd floor of this historic house in Kansas City, which was dope. We stayed there like a week. We rented it out for like a week, the 3rd floor. Is that in the
same area, that like 39th Street?
No, this is over like in Crossroads, which is like the Arts District. Oh, and there's a lot of like
sounds cool.
Really cool historic homes over there. So we rented that out for a week. And man, we had a blast in that thing. It had a big claw bathtub in there. And like, I've got a picture of Rob sitting in this big claw bathtub with 2 sandwiches. I mean, we're just like loving life,
Yeah.
So we do that, and then we have to leave. So I get a U-Haul to put all of our stuff in because we're going to find somewhere to move kind of like more permanently.
Do you know where you're going?
No, we had no plan.
Yeah.
So we put all of our stuff in the U-Haul. We rented out a room in a basement for like a night or 2. Well, the next day, my buddy's like, and I can tell when someone has the itch. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I could write the book on compulsive behaviors. So my buddy's like, I'm going to go to Target. I'll be back. And I looked at Rob. I said, he's not on my U-Haul rental. I said, go with him, drive him. So Rob drives him to Target. Well, he walks in with no backpack and comes out with a backpack. Come to find out, that backpack was full of electronics he'd shoplifted.
Oh, damn.
So Rob, I told you Rob had gotten out of prison.
Yeah.
He doesn't need any more bad press.
Right.
So they get pulled over in my U-Haul. The cops were just waiting on them. And
How far did they get?
Oh, not far.
Like a block?
They
right?
didn't get very far at all. They had just been waiting on him. So the cops pull him over in my U-Haul with all my shit in it. Rob's terrified. You know, he's already got PTSD from being...
You said he was locked up for 7 years.
Yeah, he's already got PTSD from that, you know?
How soon, when you met him, how long had he been out for?
The first day we talked was the day that he got out.
Oh, crap. All right.
Yeah, so I've got this guy who's like never left New Mexico, hasn't really seen the light of day much.
Yeah.
And I'm like, pack a bag, let's go. You're on this road, you're on this journey too, you know?
Fast forward to this day, he's in a U-Haul with stolen crap in it.
And he does, and like, he didn't take anything.
Yeah. He's not driving, is he?
He was driving.
Oh.
That's why I sent him, so he could drive, because that guy wasn't on my rental.
Oh, yeah.
The car was pulling him over, and at that point, he's a getaway car. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But luckily, the cops, for some reason, had some mercy on him and said, get what you can out of this U-Haul and take off. So he walked like 2 miles, God love him, with as much of my stuff that he could get out of that U-Haul.
Damn.
And he walks back, and he's like, our buddy's in jail. So I'm like, we got to figure something out.
And they're taking the U-Haul?
They took the U-Haul because I was supposed to return it that morning. So it had been marked as not paid. And I guess because of COVID, there's a big issue with people like renting U-Hauls and then like living in them.
Oh, so you were
they're like,
busted for the Walmart or Target theft and the U-Haul theft?
yeah, it wasn't reported as stolen. They just said, no, it hasn't been paid for today. So they wouldn't let him leave with it.
Wow.
So he gets as much of my stuff, walks like 2 miles.
Go.
Yeah, I couldn't either. It was divine intervention that he didn't go. And if he gets in trouble, he'll never see the light of day again, you know?
Yeah.
So God love him. He gets as much of my stuff as he can, walks 2 miles back to the house in the rain. And I'm like, well, let's figure something out. So we're able to get us a lift. We book this place we're in now. We booked this Airbnb. And it was just, you know, a room. We just needed a room and time to figure stuff out.
What did you book it for a night or?
I think we had booked it for like maybe 2-3 nights.
Okay.
And we come out. So we get here and my buddy gets out of jail and comes back. And I said, you're not staying another thing with my name on it.
Yeah.
So we make him get a separate res and he books here too. So we're all living in this, it's kind of like bohemian folk art.
Yeah, this place is rad.
Yeah, it's like bohemia meets folk art. And it's kind of like a hostel. It has a hostel vibe.
Oh, definitely.
So we love it. I'm eating it up. Me and Robert in heaven. I get here and it was just like a collective sigh. And we looked around and we're like, we want to be part of this. And I was like, this is cool. And we're like, we want to leave this place better than when we found it, you know? And we love it here. Just immediately we felt, you know, just like, this is our spot. Like we found our place. So we ended up like we booked up for like a month or two. We ended up booking for a month or two as like guests. Yeah. And my buddy in the meantime takes off. He does his own thing. Yeah. And Rob and I are doing sobriety together. And like my kids here, dude, I spent Halloween with my son. He was a Ninja Turtle. And I got to take him trick-or-treating.
What turtle was he?
I don't even know.
Remember what color is...
I think it was red.
Okay, Raphael. He had a little size.
Okay, yeah. He had a little red thing. Man, we had the best Halloween. And it was myself, his father, with his father. We all are starting to like hang out together. Like... He comes over here and we're going into like, we broke into an old castle and did graffiti and we're shooting fireworks off the top of it. You know, like I'm starting to build this cool life with my kid involved. And I was on a walk one morning. Rob and I went for this walk and we're walking towards the sun and I look around and I'm like, forgiveness is acceptance that you cannot change the past. That's what it is to me. And I looked around and I said, you know, Rob, the only person I haven't been able to forgive is me. And I cried and I forgave myself on that walk that morning. Because it's hard. It's hard to feel like you screw up and you blow it. And you blow it for everybody to watch and you let yourself down and I let my kid down. And I said, I got to forgive myself for that shit, you know? And I was ashamed of it. There's a lot of shame there. Which shame, Brene Brown, I'll give her a shout out again. I'm reading her book about daring greatly. And it's about how it's okay to fail greatly because it means you were in the arena fighting at one point. And the shame that I had carried around for so long made me feel unworthy of connection. And I am worthy of that. And I don't have to be ashamed, because when you own your story, you write your ending, you know?
Yeah.
And so I forgave myself that morning, and I texted my mother and I said, I want to rebuild my life here. I want you involved. I want to do it with you. I want to do it with my kid. I want to do it with my family. Because I've been on the road for 3 years. You know, nobody knew much about me. My family a lot of times didn't know where I was or what was going on.
Right.
And they had a lot of, I realized because of my shame, I pushed my family away because I didn't feel worthy of connection with them.
Right.
And when I started really digging through that and going through that, I was like, you know, I should include them in my life. You know, family's everything. And
yeah. And now you're right here, son and mother, and
yeah,
everybody else.
And I forgave myself that morning on that walk. And I told my family, I want to rebuild my life. I want you guys involved in my recovery. And I want my son here to do it with me. And I want to do it the right way. You know, because I've always tried to do these great things. But for somehow, I've always just kind of veered off the good path and ended up trying to kind of going about things the wrong way. Yeah. And I was like, I want to do things the right way. Because it's self-sabotage because of that shame and that fear. And I don't live in that stuff anymore. And so I spent Christmas with my mom, my son, his father, and Rob.
Yeah.
And we all had Christmas together this year. And for somebody like me who hadn't spent a Christmas with my family in 3-4 years, that's huge. And I gave my mother a letter on Christmas, and I was like, I'm going to continue to make a living amends to you by doing what's right. And I want to be someone you're proud of. And my mom hugged me on Christmas, and she goes, you never have to say you're sorry. She said, you know, you're a great person. You've got a lot of gifts to give this world, and you could do a lot of good. And she's like, do it, you know. And to hear my mom say that, the person who I felt hated me and was ashamed of me and didn't love me anymore, tell me that, moved me. And I started to believe that. I started believing those things about myself. Like, I'm worthy of human connection. And I'm a great mother. And, you know, I have a lot to give the world. So,
and now you're not paying to be here anymore. There.
So we
reverse, right?
We got ready to go on a trip. We went and saw Rob's family. And this is the first time, like, he's seen them since he had gotten out of prison.
So you've been in this hostel for, what, a week, a couple months?
We had been here for like a month or two, and Thanksgiving rolls around. Well, Rob had been back in communication with his father, you know, telling him like, hey, I'm getting my life together. And, you know, we learned that we could, as long as we were doing good, our families would support us and love us.
Yeah.
And I think that was a realization for both of us. Because we're like, okay, we do have these good people in our lives that do want to see us do well. You know, as long as we're doing our part, we can reach out to them. We can lean on them.
So you spent Thanksgiving with his side?
Yeah, we went
cool.
to Arizona. We flew out to Arizona. And right before we left, they said, do you guys want to do a residency here? Do you guys want to help us? Like,
here at the hostel?
Here, yeah. Because they had a resident artist. So they'll have resident artists and, like, you know, just creatives come in and they give them a spot to live and that they can help, you know, run this whole thing because there's 12 rooms here.
Yeah.
And they're always looking for good creatives to come in and make this like a hub. You know, it's a lot of good vibes here. And we just fell in love with these people. They became like family to us.
Yeah, I haven't met everyone yet, but who I have met, it's been pretty cool. And
yeah, I'm excited.
Art on the walls, everything.
Yeah,
it's pretty rad.
So they start letting me paint on the walls. And so they're like, when you come back from your trip, come back here. We'll give you guys a 3-month residency. And we're like,
sweet.
Rad.
Yeah.
So we go out to Arizona for the holidays. I meet Rob's family, like Rob from Reddit to like meeting his family, and like we're sober and we're doing good, and oh man, life's just beautiful. And it was so great. And then we ended up flying from Phoenix to Albuquerque, and we spent a night in Albuquerque, and I hooked up with one of my old girlfriends who I'd been sober with before. And she cooked us dinner and we caught up. And I mean, man, it feels so good to look at my friends and say, like, I'm really doing good. You know what I mean? It's not fake. It's like I'm finding myself as like this woman who's in this new chapter of like motherhood and sobriety and family and love and like, you know, and I've got an art residency and I'm becoming someone.
Yeah.
And I started taking charge of my mental health towards the end of the year. So I went in, I started going back to therapy and seeing a psychiatrist, and man, that's done so much for me. Staying on top of that, because it's hard to practice good coping skills if you don't even have the mental clarity to make those decisions. So I got some mental clarity, and spiritually I just started growing just as this newfound sense of like purpose and like restored meaning, and like I'm like, man, my gripes are my gratitudes. You know what I mean? Because I'm like, oh, well, I'm aware. You know?
Well, it's nice that you have this place and it's solid, and you know you're here and you're surrounded by cool people coming in and out, and you're being encouraged to do what you love to do, which is art. You know?
Yeah, and it's like I feel so supported and loved creatively just for who I am genuinely. You know what I mean? There's no mask. Like, and that's a dangerous thing to say during these times, but like my mask is off, you know, and I'm like, this is me.
Yeah.
And it's been a powerful thing. So we come back, we flew to Albuquerque for a night. We took a train. We took the Amtrak train straight from Albuquerque to here because Union Station is here.
Yeah.
And I mean, man, I had never ridden on a train before.
It's fun, huh?
Ooh, I love it. It's my preferred method of domestic transportation these days.
Yeah.
So we rode the train, and it went like up through New Mexico into Colorado and then like through Kansas here. We had the best time. Just like there's an observation deck, and we're going all through these snowy mountains, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting in this warm glass like train car looking at all of it, and I'm like, man, my life is amazing.
Yeah.
You know, my life's amazing. Like, here I am with Rob from Reddit, you know, and like I love him, and he's got this great family who's just made me feel so accepted.
I'm gonna get him on the podcast before I leave town too.
Oh yeah, you got to hear his side of things. It's rad. And he's an interesting person to talk to because he's been somewhere a lot of people haven't come back from. You know what I mean? Like, we both went to some really dark places, but the beauty in going to a dark place is coming back to the light. You know, because it's that scale, like you only know light without darkness.
Yeah.
And I fully believe now the darker you go, the brighter you can become. You know, and because you know that contrast, you know.
You have the whole little spectrum at that point.
I've seen hell and I lived it, you know, and now it's like the light's so bright and I'm like not veering away from it. I'm like stepping into it. I can like face the sun, you know, and like, so we take the train back, we come back, we start our residency here, and man, I love it here. Like, they let me paint on the walls, you know, and they're like, you know, whatever you want to do, if you guys have an idea, do it, you know, and I'm meeting all these really cool people that are just, I met some great people here. And
well, hopefully the next time we do this podcast, you don't have another dark story and it's all just a bunch of brightness between now and the next one.
I want to stay on that path because, man, like, am I reaping the benefits from that, you know, like, and I've become a resident artist and I'm becoming this piece of folklore at this like hostel, and that feels good. It feels good to, you know, show my family pictures and say, this is where I live and this is what I do. And it's like me and my kid are on a balcony painting one Sunday, you know, it's like, you know, skateboarding down the street here. It's me throwing paint on walls and my son telling me, Mom, no one's even yelling at us, and me saying, that's the best part, you know? It's building a Lego table from an old headboard, you know, to give to my son. Like, that's the kind of stuff I'm doing. That's what makes you alive, you know? That's what feels good about being alive. And
that's a good note.
we have this cool residency here, and then Rob and I are just doing life. You know, we are thriving, and I have a choice today. I wake up every day and I choose not to use drugs. I choose to call my son. You know, I choose to call my mother. I choose to be good to people. And, that's the great thing about it all is like I make that choice every day.
Yeah.
And as I continue to make those choices, my life gets better and better. And like, if you would have told me a year ago that I would be right here, right now, and I would be reunited with my son, which seemed impossible. It seemed totally impossible. And I would be a sober resident artist, and I would be hosting people who travel and helping people along their way. And, being of maximum use, I would have cried because it would have seemed like someone else's fairy tale, you know? And
now it's yours, This
it's
is
mine.
Your story.
It's mine.
Continuing on.
And it's cool because, like, this place, there's a strip club on one side and a rehab center on the other. So, like, you can go either way, And I actually, like, have put in for a job at the rehab center. So, like, I'm going to work with other people like me because, like, I needed other people like me who had done it, who had gotten sober, who to tell me, like my therapist, it gets better. Hang in there.
Yeah.
And that's so powerful. Being vulnerable and telling your story and owning your story is so powerful because there's someone out there. There was me at 19 who needed to hear me at 30. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
now you can do that for
you just
whoever's over there.
Yeah. And like sharing yourself with other people is a scary, but it's a powerful thing. And we all need each other. And COVID has kind of taught me, and I hated it in the beginning because I was still like pushing away human connection. But COVID taught me, like, we really do need other people.
Right.
We really do. As much as we say we hate society and we hate each other, at the heart of us, we're social creatures and we need each other. We need to hear the good and the bad because it gives us that contrast. You know what I mean? Like, I need to know about your bad times because I cannot relate to a perfect person,
Makes sense.
And that's how we forge the path for others. You know what I mean? That's how we forge that road that other people can walk down.
Yeah.
It's just laying all our bad stuff out like asphalt.
Yeah,
and then
hopefully just as a
rolling over
society
it.
we keep getting better. Individually we get better, and generation to generation.
I think society is shifting to where real is the new sexy. You know what I mean? Like,
you just
real.
gotta be authentic.
Authenticity is king.
Yeah.
And I want to be a part of that. I want to be authentic. I want to be true to people. And part of me doing that, like I said, you can't pour from an empty cup, is taking charge of myself. What I can do within to promote that goodness.
Yeah.
And that's me going to therapy, me being honest with my, with Rob and my family, and not hiding from the world. You know what I mean? Giving the world the good and the bad.
What's the best way to communicate? It's just to say things how they are.
Yeah, and that was so hard for me for a long time because I lived with shame and fear. What if somebody does know my whole story, Well, good, because, like, I'm writing the ending, I'm writing the ending of my story now, and it's, like, this good part of my life where, like, my son asked to come see me, and the coolest thing was I had to rebuild trust and rebuild my relationships. And my son, I told him I was going out of town for Thanksgiving. It was written all over his face. He didn't think I was going to come back.
Yeah.
And he was sad. He said, "You're leaving?" And I said, "I promise I'm coming back." And when I came back and he saw me, he came over that night, one night after I'd gotten back, and he saw me, and he jumped down from his dad's arms, and he ran across the yard, and he jumped into my arms, and he hugged me, and he put his head on my shoulder, and felt good because I kept my promise.
Yeah.
And he knows I'm here. He knows his mom's here. He knows I love him. He got to spend a birthday and a Christmas with his mom and his dad. Those things seemed impossible at one point in my life. It seemed so impossible. And whatever your impossible is, nothing's impossible.
Yeah.
Nothing's impossible.
Well, now it's your reality. So
it's my reality, and I'm living my ideal life. I'm living. They always say in the recovery world, they say, well, play the tape all the way through, and they're talking about the bad tape. But I started shifting my thinking to where I'm like, I'm going to play my good tape through. Because I know about the bad. I can do bad all day long. I know where that goes.
Yeah.
But what if you become the mother you want to be? What if you become the woman, the leader, the writer, the artist? What if you become those things? What does that look like? And like, I'm just practicing that kind of this form of like lucid living where I'm just doing it,
Yeah.
And a lot of it's serendipitous, but most things in life are. I think most great things in life are. And we have just been, set up to win, and we've got our families backing us. I've got my kid. I'm doing it with my kid by my side. I love co-hosting here because I'm like kind of like an Airbnb co-host now. So I get to throw I'll send out a little invitation come celebrate friendship. And everybody will come out back and hang out we'll light a fire and shoot some fireworks and
That's one of the most important things, just to be surrounded by friendly, like-minded people, travelers coming through and keeping your vibe up and vice versa and just keep it rolling. It's
a no races here, man, because there's always interesting people coming through. I get to throw my little events on a much smaller scale that are beneficial and nice.
Yeah.
And
you haven't canceled any and bailed out and
I have not. I've sent out every invitation. I'm showing up to every one of them.
All right.
You know what I mean? And that's remarkable for me. That kind of track record was impossible back in the day.
Yeah.
And I'm not hiding. I'm telling everybody my story. I'm here's what I did. I'm the chick that blew the pot march in Alabama, and but look at me now. I'm painting on the walls, I did a mural on a wall here and it was so great. But our life is so cool. And but I had to walk through hell to get here, and you know what? I wouldn't change a thing.
Hell yeah.
I walked through hell with gasoline boots on to get to where I am right now, but it's so sweet and so rewarding that thank God I went through all the stuff that I went through, because it landed me right here talking to you right now.
Now it's good. We can wrap it up, and next time we do this, hopefully there's not more rehab stories.
You never know, but you know what? It's just part of but I can't project and you never know, but I'm embracing the goodness and I'm facing the sun, and I'm surrounded by love and I'm empowered, and I'm thriving in that.
Perfect.
Yeah. Sweet.
Right. Until the next one.
Peace.
All right. So that is the story with Liz. Pretty wild sequence of events there. Guess we'll see what happens next. And like I said, I'm here. I'm enjoying it, and I'll be here for a little while. Really liking the vibe of the hostel kind of spot so far. Like I said, I've only been here a couple days. I haven't even met everyone involved, but I just like the vibe. There's art everywhere. There's a little bar downstairs. There's probably 8 rooms or something, and I guess people are staying here anywhere from a passing night to several months. So it's a good blend of travelers and creative people, and there's a little workshop in the basement, all this cool stuff. So hang out, wander around the city a little bit. Already hit up the beer group, so I know where a few of the good breweries are. They might have some good imperial stouts, things like that. And speaking of which, talks with Nick have gotten pretty intense as far as season 2 of hopping. So that's virtually definitely gonna happen. We need to secure funding and figure out a couple more things and just see how the next few months lay out, but we're really hoping to do that in May or June, if we can get it all together. And I'm confident. I think we can, and I'm excited. It'll be even better than the second or the first season by technical wise and know-how wise. It's gonna be great. So I'm excited. And like I said, I got my passport now. So Costa Rica is kind of front of mind as far as places I can go here in the interim in the next few weeks maybe. But just seeing how things go as usual. And should be good times all around. All right, you guys, that's it for now. And I might get you another episode here sooner rather than later. So look out for the next one. And as always, have a good time. And I will see you down the road. To hell with plans I made, I need a new escape. With all my shit straight, I'll get my big brain.